All right, guys, this is going to be an extra special video. We are going over the March 13th, 2021 SAT. We're going to go over the math without calculator section. So March is one of those great SAT dates where they actually give you your test back in the question answer service. And you can go through it and see which questions you got right and which questions you got wrong, which is awesome because they give you access to the actual test. So in this video, we're going to be going over all 20 of those questions from the Math Without Calculator section. Real quick, a common critique I get in these videos is that, oh, you're using all this strategy and these strategies take too long. You're not going to finish in the 25 minutes. So my goal in this video is to complete this whole exam while explaining it to you, which is going to take extra time, within those 25 minutes. So let's jump into it. What is the positive solution to the given equation? So why not just plug in our answers and see if we get a correct statement? If we plug in A, we'll plug in 9. Well, 9 squared is 81 plus 10 does give us 91, so that works. No need to check any of the other answers. The answer is just A. If you were actually solving like a quadratic here, x squared plus 10 equals 91. You want to get everything to one side, so you can subtract 91 on both sides. 10 minus 91 is negative 81. And then you'll factor x minus 9, x plus 9. And you could see that from this, we get x equals 9. All right. Pretty straightforward. Shouldn't have even taken you that long. Number 2, same concept. What value of x satisfies the given equation? Just plug in your values. If you plug in 4, you're going to get 11 over there, and then 3 times 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. So 11 doesn't equal 3 times 1. A is out. B, if you plug in 8. So if you plug in 8, you get 15 over here, and then you'll get 3 times 5, which is 15. So B works. And just like that, you've completed the 2 easiest questions on this SAT section. Questions get progressively harder, so they're not all like that. It would be nice, right? Here we have a slope of 1, and they tell you it passes through the point 0, 2, which means your y-intercept is 2, right? Your y-intercept is when x equals 0, and vice versa. Your x-intercept is when y equals 0. But regardless, if you have a line in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, you can just fill in your numbers. Slope and y-intercept. So y equals 1x plus 2, which is just c. That's about it. Number 4. This is the fun one with these German coins. They tell you the Pfennigs are worth 1 each. So the Pfennigs are worth 1. And they tell you the Groschens are worth 10. So the Groschens are worth 10. And they tell us our total value is 85, which is why all of these equal 85. So we need a certain number of Pfennigs, which are worth 1 each, and Groschens, which are worth 10 each. And it looks like this correctly pairs up the coefficients. The P's should have a coefficient of 1 because they're worth 1 each, and the G's should have a coefficient of 10 because they're worth 10 each. So if you had 3 Groschens, that would be 30 cents. Yeah, so that one's actually not too bad. Next one, we're trying to match our equation with a graph. So we know our slope is negative 1/4 for the same reason as before. Our slope is just a number multiplied by x. And then our y-intercept is negative 2. Now, I can see right off the bat, A and B, those have positive slopes. So it can definitely not be negative 1/4. And I know it's positive because they both go up and to the right, up and to the right. And if I look at my graph, it looks like D goes up 1 and over 4, right? Negative 1/4 is your rise over run. So we're rising 1, running 4. C looks like we are rising 4 and running 1. So that's not it. We didn't even really need to use our y-intercept. Now this and this both had a y-intercept of negative 2. So that meant like A and B were extra incorrect because they had the wrong slope and the wrong y-intercept. But whatever, who cares? Number 6. All right, we're a quarter of the way there, and it's been like, what, 3 minutes? All right. When graphed in the xy plane, what point is a solution? Once again, we're just plugging stuff in, guys. So let's plug in a, 1 comma 1. So if y is greater than 4x, and I'm plugging into there, I'd get 1 is greater than 4 times 1, which is not true. So right off the bat, I can eliminate a. I haven't even gotten the opportunity to move on to the second equation because whatever point is correct needs to work with both equations. So get rid of that. -2 comma -2. Well, let's see in the first equation. Is -2 greater than 4 times -2, which is -8? And yes, it is. And this is where they confuse you. -2, although 2 is not greater than 8, -2 is greater than -8. And you can think of this, would you rather have $2 stolen from you or $8 stolen from you? Right, $2. You have more money if you only had $2 stolen from you. Now we're able to move on to the second equation and see if that holds true. Now we'll plug in -2 for y and plug in -2 for x. And we get -2 is less than 2. Perfect. We're not going to check C and D. We've gotten kind of lucky. With these plug-in questions, we haven't even gotten a chance to plug in C and D, which is great because less effort. Maybe if you have time at the end, after you finish the whole test, you can just double check by trying C and D, but there's no need. All right, the equation H equals 150 plus 10t gives the total number of housing units, blah, blah, blah. How many housing units are added to the community each month? If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that in a linear equation, your slope, which is the number multiplied by your variable, is your change per unit time. So if they're asking you how many housing units are added every month, we're talking months here, t is months, then it's just the slope. That's it, just 10. Now don't think just because y equals mx plus b in a normal line, don't just think that the slope always comes first. The slope is the one multiplied by the variable. So sometimes you might see it y equals b plus mx like you do here. Notice how this is your y-intercept. 150 would be the answer if they are asking you like how many houses were initially there. And 10 is how many houses are added every month. It's your change. So take those shortcuts. Make sure you remember y-intercept is your starting point, slope is your change, which can be an increase or decrease. All right, which expression is equivalent to this guy? Now, I always say when you see the word equivalent and you see variables in the question and in the answer choices, be on the lookout to maybe make up a number for your variable. So you could say x equals 5 here. But honestly, I think this question's a little too easy to go through that whole motion. I think it's better to just do this algebraically. 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. We can get rid of those parentheses because we don't have any multiplication or anything there. It's not really separating it from much. But this negative needs to get distributed inside of here. So we'll have minus 5x squared plus x plus 7. See how we flipped all of those signs. All right, and then we're combining like terms. Negative 3x squared, 4x, and 5. And it looks like the answer is D. Perfect. All right, 8 problems down. Number 9. Oh, look at this. We have that word equivalent once again. Now, feel free to solve it algebraically if you're comfortable with that kind of thing. But for this problem, I'm going to actually make up a number for x, kind of like I described a second ago. So I'm going to say that x equals, let's say, 1. Now, if I plug that into my question, I get 1 over x, which is 1 over 1, plus 1 over 2. So 1 over 1 is just 1, plus 1 over 2 is 1.5. A whole plus a half is 1.5. And now what I do is I plug that x into all of my answer choices and see which one gets me something equivalent to 1.5. Now a is out. 1 over 1 is 1. B is out. 1 over 2 is not 1.5. It's 0.5. And D is out. 2 over 3 is not 1.5. That's going to be 0.6 repeating. Now C, 3 over 2, yes, that is 1.5. So C is the answer. And just remember, a fraction that has a numerator greater than the denominator, like 3 over 2, that's going to give you something that's greater than 1. That's how I knew very quickly that this was not the answer or this, because those were both fractions that were less than 1. All right, number 10. This is probably one of the tougher problems that we're going to be doing on this practice section. So the graph in the xy plane of the equation above is a circle, which is something you should honestly be familiar with. When you see an x squared and a y squared in an equation on the SAT, it's always a circle. They don't have ellipses. They don't have hyperbolas, nothing like that. It's always a circle if you see an x squared and a y squared. Now, we need the coordinates of the center of the circle. Now, we are used to seeing an equation like this, where we could very quickly determine that the center of the circle is -3, 3. Right? So -3, 3 would be the center of the circle, and the radius would just be the square root of this number. But unfortunately, they didn't give us the equation that looks like this. So what we need to do is we need to make our equation look like a standard circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to complete the square. X squared minus 10x, leave some space. Y squared plus 6y, leave some space, equals 2. Now, to complete the square, you always look at the coefficient on your variable, not the x squared, just the x. So we have a -10. We want to divide that by 2, and we get -5. And then you want to square it, so you get 25. That's the number you're adding to both sides. And then we'll do the same thing for our y. Take the coefficient on the y, divide it by 2, and then square it. So we'll add 9 to both sides. And notice how now we can factor this. That becomes x minus 5 squared. And this becomes y plus 3 squared. And it doesn't matter what's over here. That's going to help us with our radius, but they didn't ask us about it. They said the center. So the center would be 5, -3. Boom, C. It's a tough one. That is a really tough one in my opinion. Number 11. This stumped a lot of my students, but I don't think it's that hard in my opinion. So what is the graph of the equation y equals 2 times 3 to the x? All we have to do is make up some numbers. Make a little chart of x and y values. If we plug in x equals 1, we just get 2 times 3, which is 6. 2 times 3 to the first is just 2 times 3. So 1, 6. At the very least, you should see A and C have 1, 6. And we could very quickly narrow it down to a 50-50 if you can't do anything else other than get the point 1, 6 on your graph. Now, here's something that really confuses people. The idea that anything to the 0 power, so if you make x 0, anything to the 0 power is 1. So we get 2 times 1 here. And now we're looking for A or C that has 0, 2. And A has that. C has 0, 3. So that's out. So make up numbers. When you have an equation, to get a graph, all you have to do is make up numbers. Any graph in life, you can just make up numbers and you have your graph. All right, this one confused people as well. Number 12. Which of the following is a value of x for which y is 0? Remember before we said when y is 0, don't let them confuse you with f of x. It just means y when y is 0. Remember when y is 0, we said that's an x-intercept just a second ago. X-intercepts are there, there, and there. And the only number that I see in my answer choices that I just highlighted is C. That's the point 1, 0. -1, we have the point -1, 6. So A is out. B, we have the point 0, 4. Not 0, 0. And D, we have the point 4 comma, I don't know, somewhere up there. Doesn't matter. But please make sure you understand they are asking you for a value of x. So all of our answer choices were x coordinates, guys. All right. Number 13, this was one that stumped a lot of students. So we have an equation, 12 times 2 to the t over 6. And now they just ask us, what does the 2 to the t over 6 mean in context? Now, the number of water hyacinths doubled t times. No, why would it have doubled t times? That doesn't really make sense. T is our unknown. If it doubled t times, that means that this would kind of just go away. So that I really don't think that makes much sense. The number of water hyacinths doubled every 6 days. Well, if t is 6, notice how that makes it cancel. That's what I was referring to a second ago. And now we just get 12 times 2, which is a doubling equation, right? 12 times 2 is just 24. So it doubled. It's got to be B. It increased by 2 every t over 6 days. That doesn't make sense to me either. And the number of water hyacinths increased by 2 every t days. No, this is doubling, not adding by 2. Yeah. Number 14, another toughie. We're getting to the last few multiple choice questions, so they're supposed to be tough. Now, what I told my students is to kind of sketch this. We have an x-intercept at -1, at 1, and at -2. So, right here, and right here, right, this gives us an x-intercept of 1, -1, and -2. That means that our x-intercepts are on the graph there, and our cubic function, we know it's cubic because we have 3 roots, no double roots. It should either look like this or the other way. And the way we figure that out is by kind of multiplying these out, and we'd see that when we multiply these x's, we're going to get a positive x cubed, not a negative x cubed. Meaning that at the very end, we should be going up. That means our graph should look something like this. They ask us if our x-coordinate, right, A is our x-coordinate, it's the first number in the ordered pair. If our x-coordinate is between -1 and 1, so if we're in between here, what's a possible value or not a possible value for the y-coordinate? I can see in this range of numbers between -1 and 1, and I'll highlight that in green. In this green part of the curve, I am always either touching the x-axis or below it. So I cannot be above the x-axis. I can't have any positive numbers because I don't have any points up here. So it's got to be D because all of my numbers in this range are negative or 0. And the final multiple choice question. On the front of the SAT, please know they give you a bunch of equations. One of those that would come in handy here is the volume of a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. All right. And the larger beach ball has a diameter of 3x and the smaller one has a diameter of x, which means the diameter of the larger one is 3 times the smaller one. That holds true for the radius as well. If your diameter is 3 times the size, that means your radius would be 3 times the size. So we have one ball that might have a radius of 1 and one ball that might have a radius of 3. Notice how when you plug in 1 into here, you're just going to get an r cubed of 1. But when you plug a 3 into here, 3 cubed gets you 27. And that's how we can see that it's going to be a 27-to-1 ratio. And we don't really need to worry about the 4/3 pi because that's going to be the same for each equation. It's going to be 4/3 pi times 1 or 4/3 pi times 27, which regardless, we're going to have an increase of 27-fold. All right, into the grid-ins where we don't have choices to choose from. The given equation can be written as t equals AD plus BH. All that really means is solve for t, right? Look at this equation and get it to look like this, where t is all by itself. So for t, I'll add 8d to both sides, 12h plus 8d, and then divide everything by 4. And now they're asking us what is the value of a, which is the coefficient on the d, which is 2. And that's our answer. Now, don't get confused. Don't think that they just ask you for the coefficient that comes at the end, right? Or actually the coefficient that comes before. And in that case, we'd get 3. But it's more important that it's the coefficient on the d, not the h. And that's why it's 2 and not 3. All right, another really tough problem in my opinion. So they want the perimeter of this trapezoid. So something that I think is important is that you are able to break this up into smaller shapes. This 26 is the whole length down here. So if this is 10, well, we have 16 more to work with. We know this is 10 as well. So if this is 10 right there, then this will have to be 8, and this will have to be 8. That way the whole thing is 26. So if you look at this triangle, this upright is 6, and this base is 8, and it makes a right angle with the base. So if you have your 3, 4, 5 triangles kind of fresh in your mind, then you know this is 10, and this is 10, or you could do the Pythagorean theorem. And either way, you'll get 10. 100 equals c squared. And now it's pretty straightforward. We add up all of the sides. We have 10, 10, 10, and 26 to get us 56 as the correct answer. All right, what is the value of x in this system of equations? I'm just going to copy it down right here. Now, please make sure if you're solving for x, do not eliminate x. Eliminate y. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by positive 7. That way I have a 7y and a negative 7y. So this becomes a 28, and this becomes a 49. So I just multiplied this top equation by 7. And now you can see I can add straight up and down. 30x, those cancel, equals 50. Cancel some zeros, and then divide by 3. X equals 5 over 3. And that's your answer. You can grid it in just like that as a fraction. That's one of the options in your grid in, to actually grid in the fraction or a decimal. But honestly, it's much easier to grid in a fraction. So the reason I say eliminate the thing that you're not solving for is because we're solving for x. So if you solve for y, you have an extra step of plugging that back in to get your x. 2 more problems, guys. And number 19, 1/2 x plus 5 equals kx plus 7. The equation has no solution. Almost had no question when I erased it. The equation has no solution. So that means that our variables are going to cancel very simply. So 1/2 x on that side is going to cancel with 1/2 x on that side. K is 1/2. And the reason it's no solution is because when you cancel it, you get 5 equals 7, which is incorrect, so no solution. So if you ever get no solution, that means your variables cancel, and you get a false equation. Now, if it ever said infinite solutions, your variables cancel, and you'd get something like 5 equals 5. But that's not really too relevant here. They said no solution. Yeah, so I know a lot of people were a little annoyed with how simple this answer was, but, you know, it's better than having to do more work than you have to. And then here, this is a pretty tough question. So the equation has solutions, this and this. Now, when you see the plus and minus, you should instantly think quadratic formula. Opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And in this case, a, which is the coefficient on the x squared, is 1. B, which is the coefficient on the x, is negative 2. And c, which is the coefficient, not the coefficient, the constant at the end, excuse me, is negative 1. So the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Well, 4ac is negative 4. That negative makes it positive now. All over 2a. So we're going to get 2 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. And remember, the square root of 8 is just the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, right? Because 4 times 2 is 8. So the square root of 8 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And the square root of 4 is just 2. And now we can divide each of these by 2. So we'll get 1 plus or minus the square root of 2, and we simplify. And that is going to help us find our answer. So when they say the value of n plus k, well, n is just this number, and k is just this number. So 3 is our final answer there. And that's it. Those are 20 questions. That took me about 25 minutes on the dot. So you can see that these strategies do give you enough time, especially since I explained stuff on the way and kind of took my time with this. So I hope that you got a few things out of this. I hope that you learned a few new strategies that maybe you didn't know before. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to be making another video with the calculator section coming up. So I'll see you guys in that video.
Brad does math.